If you haven't already done so, do yourself a favor and watch the full reveal from Starfield. It is everything you would expect it to be. You got Todd Howard coming out on stage. Oh, that's a great frame to freeze on. Walking out on stage in traditional Todd Howard awesomeness, the way he did when he reveals like a big game and he does this huge long deep dive, you know you're in for a treat. And this was an amazing, amazing ride. I cannot wait for Starfield. I was already excited for it before, to be honest. It wasn't really until I saw this video specifically that really just made me like, oh my God, like I didn't realize how big the scope of the universe was. So, what makes Starfield so interesting to me is that it is a basically RPG's lover's dream. If you're a fan of Fallout or if you're a fan of Elder Scrolls series, which I mean, huge fan here, right? Super excited, but it's in outer space. So you're going to be able to land on these crazy planets, walk around, mine ore and materials, and explore. And the way they explained it to me, and at least the way I understood it, you could walk around anywhere. There may be distinct levels or areas, like clearly they want you to go check out that building there. But the way that it was kind of laid out to me was there's planets to go off and see, and there are things to find. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be incredibly dense. You may go off all the way on the corner of the screen over there and find nothing. But the fact that you can do it sounds cool. The fact that it has that No Man's Sky ship ability where it seems like you can take off and just kind of hover around planets, not like landing at a specific zone. Now, that may not be true. I don't know. But just my wish list or my thought process here is, okay, it's going to be one of these games where you're going to get in a ship, you're going to have this persistent, amazing universe to explore, and how you want to tackle and where you want to land and what you want to see is up to you. That would be consistent with what we've seen from other Bethesda titles. You think of Skyrim, when you could just go pretty much anywhere within the bounds of the game. Same with Fallout, or you know, that in any of the Fallouts, I say Fallout 4 or 5, 3 or 4, or New Vegas, any of them, right? There's a giant map. Go find things to do. You may find treasures, you may find dungeons, you may find cool things that exist for you to go find. So go out and do it. So I'm excited for that exploration piece of things. There's a whole base building element to it as well, a whole shipbuilding element to it as well. There are persistent towns that already exist for you to explore, which obviously is going to drive a lot of the story narration in terms of like where you want to go and like the missions you want to take on. But if this town, let me back up a little bit. If this town is a town that you can actually go check out, you can go in the stores. You could just think of a full blown spaceport where there are probably multiple spaceports out on the planet where you're going to find different vendors and quests and everything. The scope seems very massive, and what worries me is we know Bethesda games in general lack some of that polish sometimes. I know they've been working on this game a long time, but I'm waiting to see the bugs of like, oh, you go on this planet and you fall through the world, or this NPC isn't rendered, or you can put a barrel over their head and steal things. You know, there's always something funny to be found here, but the universe and the idea of the expanse that you're going to be able to see, and the enemies that you're going to encounter, and the worlds you're going to get to see, if they're truly distinctly different, like I hope that they are, wildly different races and civilizations, something like we have seen in Elder Scrolls, where Nord mythology is very different than Dwemer, very different than Orcish or Elf. I'll be curious to see if they can pull that off in a new universe with totally new races and people. Looks like, though, when you're kind of starting the game, you are going to be humanoid. I don't really see, unless there's more to reveal, I don't really see a whole lot here on the character creator that would indicate to me that you're not going to be just a human person helping other humanoid types. I'd be curious. I don't think it's in a sense like a Mass Effect game where you're going to come across wildly different races of people, but I don't know. I would suspect so. The fact that they're kind of, at least right now, showing humanoid makes me wonder how that's going to kind of play out going through the story and that sort of thing. There's tons of research projects and skill trees and weapon modifications that you can undertake in terms of not just learning new weapons, but actually like going out and finding materials. Here you need to find some materials. to actually craft new pieces of gear and craft food. It looks like I'm looking at the left here. It looks like guns and building structures and types of food and probably potions or something that will buff buff your character or whatever. I'm very excited for that, and just going out and finding the world. And it's remarkable that they have found a way to take everything that I personally have loved about the base building of these games and the just sheer exploration and that fantasy element and the combat and the crafting and the looting and all of that, and kind of the culmination of everything. I think I had always thought that was going to be Elder Scrolls, right? I think I always assumed that the final Elder Scrolls is going to be like the thing. And it seems like we're getting it early. It seems like Starfield is going to be the thing. I feel like I'll be playing this game forever, and I'm okay with that. Now, it's not all roses, though, and I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that I noticed that worried me. First and foremost, and it's hard to tell with these games. It's very hard to tell with these games because it's streamed and it's not true to source. Sometimes it's obviously still, things are still in development, whatever. First and foremost, the colors are just very muted and dull. I know that we had that in the other games, particularly in the Fallout universes, because we suffered a catastrophic apocalypse and the world had been destroyed, and there was a lot of char and ash and destruction on everything and rubble, and that's typically just destroyed granite gray. Think of like Terminator 2 at the beginning when John Connor's fighting the Terminators, right? It still seems like they're using a lot of that color palette here, though. And I was hoping space would be brighter, cheerier, more bright, vibrant, fun. Now, you did see some of that in the towns, particularly with... you did see some... let me pause this here for just a second. You did see that in some of the towns where it kind of had that cyberpunk vibe, lots of neon lights and everything. And even here, your ship, you can see there's definitely some color on your display. I'm not saying it's just black and white, but what worries me a little bit is I feel like the color palette may be a little muted. And that may not sound like a big deal now, but if you're going to invest as much time in this game as I think many of us are, we may regret that decision. The other thing that I'm not particularly thrilled about is the space combat seemed very simplistic. Now, this is coming off a guy who played Star Citizen. I don't know why Kevin keeps talking me into installing this just dumpster fire of a game. But I will admit, Star Citizen space combat is unlike anything I've ever played. The amount of levers and switches and shields and boosts and cutting your engine and everything, it flies. The true fluidity of space is fully realized. Here, this seems like a glorified dogfighter. Seems like I'm going to just fly around in circles, get up behind an enemy, and shoot the heck out of them. And I don't know if that is as depth of a system as I wanted. I would like something. Now, I will readily admit Star Citizen is very aggressive in some of it. And it's like, I remember getting in a cockpit and it'd take me like 10 minutes. Like, wait, what am I doing? Like, I'm pulling up the manual. I understand this is driven towards console gamers where the whole sense of the bread and butter is going to be that first person shooter exploration. And this is just kind of a nice add-on. But it worries me that I feel like this may be a bit too simplistic. It remains to be seen, of course. The last thing I wanted to mention is something that I was a little familiar, or not, I've been familiar with Bethesda games, I'll just say. I've been playing them my whole life. The performance seems to be rough. Now, I get it. I personally will be playing this on PC, absolutely no doubt about it. This does not look like a console game for me, personally. Obviously, my PC is a bit more powerful than an Xbox Series X. Probably upgrading here in about a year or so, 6 months, so probably even be better off then. But it didn't look the best. It looked like it was suffering quite a bit, and some of the movement was not as fluid as I wanted. It seemed like the system was really struggling, and they were doing these very slow pans like this intentionally to avoid screen tearing. And the way the character would kind of like slowly move their head and like look around, very floaty like. Those are tricks that you can do in a game development world to hide the fact that the frame rate isn't quite there yet. So I don't want them to sacrifice performance for frames, but I find it largely inexcusable if, and I'll see you later, Todd. I find it largely inexcusable if a game that's been worked on as long as it has hand in hand with the development of the Series X, doesn't hit 60 frames a second. I think that is I'm not going to say it's a deal breaker, but man, we need that. We really need that. So super stoked. This is the thing that people are going to be talking about for a while. This is the next big thing. I believe in Bethesda. I believe in Todd Howard. I believe in Xbox. I know they're going to give us a great experience, and I can't wait to play it with you all. But I wanted to do a review, or at least some talks and some thoughts on Starfield, because this is a big thing that is on everybody's radar, especially mine. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you found this video interesting and informative. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.